This story has been recorded at an Addictive Eaters Anonymous meeting in New Zealand. You can email us at contact@aeanz.org.
And the speaker tonight is Joanne.
Hi, I'm Joanne, I'm a food addict.
Hi, Joanne.
Thank God it's a busy day because I haven't had a chance to think about anything that I was going to say. So I'm sorry if everybody's going to get very bored with my story. Everybody's heard it a number of times, and I did think about that. But I'm hoping that there might be one person that this story gets to that gets some sense of hope that with all the struggling and suffering of what it's like to not be able to stop eating and think that we have to live this life forever, that it gives somebody a sense of hope that there is a solution and that things can be different. Before I came here, what I remember about my whole life from a little girl from the age of kindergarten was a girl that felt very, very different in her family. I felt like I never belonged. I was shy and scared. I was too scared to go to kindergarten. I'd hold my breath, I'd pass out, I'd wet my knickers because I was passed out so much. I was jealous, very, very jealous of my younger sister. Not that I would have known that, but I know that, as an adult, looking back, the behaviours changed when my mother brought home my younger sister. And whether or not that's got anything to do with having this disease, or whether it's just actually what a small child does, don't know. But I made it very, very hard work for my mother, who also had two older children. I've got two older sisters to look after. And so right from an early age, I felt very, very different. Attention seeker is what I was. I wanted all the attention. I didn't want it to go to anybody else. My mother dressed me in pants, I wanted a dress. If she dressed me in a dress, I wanted pants. If she had anything on, I'd pull them off. Pom-poms off. I was just absolutely such an awful, awful child. I would have been diagnosed with ADHD or something else. I cut the cat's whiskers, I hairsprayed it, I cut the side of my mum's new couch, I smoked up in the loft up in the smoked under the bed. Anything that I could do, I would do. And my mum never really knew I was the problem child, I'd say. And that's before it wasn't during that age or through primary school that I ever thought that I had a problem with food. It was more but I did through primary school have a problem with my body and how I felt within myself. So I can remember feeling like that, and I can remember feeling that I was fat and overweight. And I look back at those photos and I might have been a little bit chubby in some of those photos, but I certainly didn't look a lot different to the other children in those photos. So I felt big from an early age. And then when I started high school, I was very, very self-conscious, conscious of, body weight, and people wouldn't have seen me as shy then. I kind of had been a bit loud, smart, try and crack a joke, try and be a bit funny, but I probably wasn't. But I was shy around boys, and my first boyfriend, which I was with for a long time, Jacob's father, the only way that I went out with him was I had to be drunk first. So I had to feel comfortable in myself before I even thought food was a problem. I started drinking, and I think I was 14 when I started going out with him. And I'd already started drinking at that time, and I was smoking pot. And when I met him, his neighbour who owned the burger bars in Belfast and Marty's in Pepinui. If anybody knows those, they were quite popular and they made very good hamburgers. They were always out at work, so they worked long hours, so it was always the parties next door, at 14, and we're all having, parties all the time because there's no parents there. So we're all having parties and girls and boys and I was feeling very different then. And I remember it was around that time that I lost quite a bit of weight. And like I've shared before, going into Topshop, and it was the jeans, the baggies, it was called the baggies, and going into that shop and taking a pair of jeans off the rack and taking them back into the changing rooms. And I don't know what size I got, but they were way too big. I think it was probably around about a 16 or something. And the lady looked at me because I put them on and I thought, what's happened here? Because I would have in the mirror seen myself with really huge hips and big backside. And she bought in a pair of jeans which were size 9. And I looked at these tiny little jeans, and I looked at those and they were loose around the top. Straights they were then, and I could not comprehend how I was a size 9 when I actually thought that I was huge, like a size 16 or 18. So I was always like that, and I wanted to be thin, but I couldn't stop myself from eating to start putting on weight. So I would have been small, but then I would have gradually put on weight. And as time went on, anything that I ate, I always had guilt about it, and even if it had just been a normal meal what other people ate, I had a lot of guilt around it because I thought that I had put on so much weight. And, as the years went on, I didn't know then that it was the disease progressing in me, but I got worse. The anger got worse in me. And I think a lot of that anger was just not knowing what was wrong and trying to work out why I felt the way that I did and not having any solution for it. I would wake up feeling so angry, and I'd be living at home and I'd wake up, and people would try and stay out of my way because they would be scared. I was awful to people. My youngest sister, I bullied her terribly. I'd give her hidings, get her on the ground and punch her and give her hidings and break my toe a number of times from kicking her. And because I thought she deserved it because she annoyed me. And she would not have been doing anything wrong except she was skinny. My oldest sister and my youngest sister were skinny. And myself and my next sister were called the chubby ones, and there was a lot of fighting between these 4 girls, my poor mum. And so I bullied her and took a lot of my anger out on her. And as time went on, nothing changed, and things just got worse. By the time I was 20, I was still with that boy that I met when I was 14. Still with him, and I was over in Australia, living over there. Came back for just a bit of a holiday back over to New Zealand, and I was going to the pub with all my friends. All my friends were always at the pub, they're always drinking. My best friend was, she was always smoking pot, popping pills. She was the local dealer in Kaipoi. We used to go and I'm going to drive down to Spencerville. I went down there last weekend. Driving down there, and I thought, how could I have ever gone with her to pick up all those pills that used to bags under the seat and the pot? How did I ever feel like comfortable or think that that was okay? Because when I was driving down, I was thinking, oh gosh, I don't know how I did that, because I actually had a conscience, and was scared about things like that. So I don't know how I did that. But that was the group that I hung around with. I had one friend that wasn't like that, but all my other friends were like that. And it was kind of just, a lot of people probably just teenage years that they were not going to the pub, probably not going and getting pills and pot and so on. But and so my friends were like that, and I came back and I was doing that, and I found that I was pregnant, and I was 18 weeks pregnant when I found out, and the moment that I found out that I was pregnant, I didn't touch a drink or a pill or any drugs. I stopped drinking coffee. I had absolutely nothing, and the food just went off. It just completely went off, where I could not stop eating. And I went back over to Australia and started going for checkups and everything, and I'd go and they'd weigh me, and I hated being weighed. And because of the way that I was eating, and I think it had a big part to why I had my first son at 30 weeks, pre-eclampsia. I know it is diet related, and plus other things, but that's part of it. And I was just like a balloon, my kidneys had shut down, I was having heart failure, it was like really not, it was awful. And the doctors would come around and look at what I had ordered. They'd have quite good meals that you could order there at the hospital, but I didn't eat vegetables or fruit or anything like that. I just ate rubbish, I never had. I hated fruit and I hated vegetables. I don't really know what I had, but it would have just been, rubbishy food. And I remember it was humiliating because they lifted up the lid and they looked and they just put it down. And, they had told me through that pregnancy to eat healthy, but I couldn't, And I, left that hospital and left him in there, left Jacob in there and went home. He was in there for 2.5 months, and I could not stop eating like I knew. I tried, but I couldn't. And that was kind of my life with food thereafter. It was just a constant battle, and then the feeling, that self-conscious with weight and on the scales, off the scales, and just hating myself, really, just absolutely hating myself. And, coming back to New Zealand, and things getting worse and that relationship ending, and, then I went into another relationship, not long after that. I think I probably didn't like being by myself, really. I don't know, but I think that's probably what it really was, because both of those relationships, they're more like teen relationship, and then, I met, my other boy's father, but I didn't have those feelings. I ended up in a relationship that really, just because I did really, I didn't know that. I kind of like, I know now because I know what I felt like. But that relationship just went on, and through that relationship, I started having a lot of counselling because I was just so angry, and I was treating people really badly around me, and I was treating my children poorly as well. I was yelling at them and smacking them and having tantrums way more severe than what they were having. And by the time I came in here to the fellowship, I was, I had four children. And I think my youngest, he wasn't very old. So I came in here into the fellowship through when my youngest was 2, and I had a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old, and when I started going to counselling for my behaviour and thinking that was related to my father, because he was an alcoholic, and I thought that the reason why I was the way I was is, it's his fault. If he had wanted us, he would have stopped drinking. It's all because of him. And, God, I hated seeing my father that way. Not the drinking, didn't like seeing him drinking, but I hated and felt so sad to see my father looking so lonely and as if he had no friends in the world and such a shy man. I hated seeing him like that. And I used to wish that he would die just so that he wasn't suffering, because I was young, but I could see him suffering. My whole life I've seen him suffering. And I didn't know that I had the same thing. And it wasn't until I came here that Leonie actually shared about this being a disease of loneliness, and as soon as she said that, I related it to me and I related it to him. And when I went up to, started this counselling and I went up to Hamlin, up to Queen Mary as a family member, that's the first time I started hearing people share about addiction and alcoholism, and although I was there as a family member, I related to every single thing that those people shared. I related to the people in the Al-Anon meetings as well, but not so much as for myself as what I did with the other addicts there. And I kind of, when I came out of there, I learned in there about OA, but when I came out of there and I learned about, I was going to Al-Anon, I remembered what a girl had said to me about her problem with food. And even then, when she talked to me about her problem with food, I never even thought that was me. She only mentioned a little bit, but I remembered the fellowship that she talked about. But I was sneaking food inside a newspaper back to my bedroom. I was hating eating in front of people. I was pregnant and about 30 weeks pregnant, and I thought I should have been losing weight, and I never thought that was weird thinking. I thought I'd lose weight because somebody would be controlling my food. I thought I shouldn't have seconds, I shouldn't eat anything else, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with my thinking because I've always thought like that. I mean, God, who thinks it's okay to lose weight when you're pregnant? God. So, when I left and I went to and had that baby and I was going to Al-Anon, there was still something missing. I still knew that something was not quite right. I wasn't getting better, and I could see things falling around. I wanted to be a good mum. So I probably wanted to be a good wife. Well, I did want to be a good wife, because what Wayne wanted was just a happy family. But actually he was never going to have a happy family with the way that I was, And so when I realised that nothing was going to change, something reminded me of this girl, and I can remember standing in front of a mirror. I was looking in that mirror. I was covered in psoriasis. I'd had the baby, so I was big and feeling uglier than normal. And I rang the number for that 12-step fellowship, and 2 people came and seen me. And when I came into those rooms and heard other people sharing about their experience and what they were like, not only with the eating, but all those feelings around the loneliness, the anger, their moods, the behaviour towards others, I knew that that's the gap that I was feeling. It was there, there in those rooms. And I wanted more than anything to be able to stop eating and to start getting well. And I went home and I was very, very excited. I cried, I was so excited. I couldn't sleep, and I started going to the meetings. I started actually only going to one meeting because I didn't know that people went to lots of meetings. I started going to one meeting, and then very quickly I learned that actually people go to more meetings. One person said to me, when she seen me at an extra meeting, she says, "Oh, you might get well." And she's not here now. But I started going to more meetings, and I got a sponsor, and I started trying to do everything that was suggested and what I heard other people doing. I was down on my knees praying every morning. I was writing out a food plan. I was ringing more when I wasn't eating, because I could not stay on a food plan. I had that obsession, that craving was so powerful that I would get through the morning and afternoon would come, just ring on over time, and the afternoon would come and I would be eating. I just could not get through a whole day. And that went on for 2 years. You know, I had a very small period where I wasn't eating, but for 2 years I could not stop eating. You know, I come into meetings and I'd see other people that would come in after me and they had, you know, God had removed that obsession to eat, but not with me. You know, I just come in and I'd be humiliated and not want to say that I'd been eating, and you know, I'd cry leaving these meetings and I'd go to McDonald's and I'd get all the flavoured sundaes because I couldn't decide which one I want. I mean, I only used to have one flavour before I came here, but by the time I was here, 4 flavours, had them all, couldn't decide what burgers, got a few, you know, eat them on the way home, sit down the road of my street, sit there and eating them, get the rubbish and put it in the bin and drive home and feel so guilty and hope that it was not around my mouth. And I would go and make the lunches because I'd done the baking, and then I'd start eating the bacon. It was just my life every day, and the other people would stop eating it, and it's just, I think it's even worse coming to meetings and knowing that the answer's there, but actually I'm not going to get it. You know, and Kay always talks about thinking that she was one of those poor unfortunates, and that's exactly what I felt like, a poor unfortunate that just could not give up this life. And I didn't know how to give up that life or because I was praying and I know God was the only one that could remove that obsession to eat, but yet He wasn't doing it for me. And, you know, I'd ring my sponsor and, you know, she would always talk to me, give me all the time in the world and always talk to me and keep saying to me, keep doing what you're doing, it's a gift. And like her, I didn't know what that meant. But I always, still, even though I was eating, after I talked to her on the phone, I still got a little glimmer again, you know, just because I've seen it working. And, you know, I did my 4th step with the hope that that would stop me eating, but it didn't. You know, I had another baby, and I thought, surely I'm going to stop eating through that pregnancy, but I didn't. You know, it wasn't until that baby was 6 weeks old that was the last time. And he's 19 in March now, but I don't know what was different on that day, but I remember the day. You know, 18 years ago, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I can see the bench, I can see the food, I can feel what it felt like to want that food, I can hear the children in the background as if in tunnel vision, you know, that they're just echoing in the back, and I have that obsession and I want to eat, and I'm crying because I don't want to eat it, but yet everything inside me wants it. And somehow I didn't eat that food. I don't know how. I didn't eat that food, and I rang somebody, and I can't remember if it was my sponsor or if it was somebody else. I can't remember who I rang, but I never had that craving after that. It was gone, like absolutely gone. I mean, that is totally amazing. It is a miracle to have that want to eat all the time, like every minute of the day, because it got to every minute of the day. From the time I woke up, I was battling that obsession and calorie counting and exercising, and every step I took, I thought, good, I'm burning off those calories. All of that every day to gone, removed. You know, it's absolutely not me. Not through all the willpower in the world could I have stopped that thinking. So I mean, I don't have any doubt that that is my higher power working for me. And for some reason, it was on that day and He chose to remove it. And if I didn't have that experience, then I certainly wouldn't have that experience for others that have come in after me that keep on eating. Other people did have that experience, and I'm grateful for that, because if I had come into the fellowship and everybody came in and they got it the minute that they sat on those seats, I would still think something was seriously wrong with me. Today I actually don't think something is seriously wrong with me. I don't think I'm schizophrenic. I don't think that it's because I'm Gemini. I don't think that I'm manic. What I know is that I have this disease of addiction. And all of those behaviours and all of those number 4s that I love and had to do number 4s on the right, the left, the bottom, the top, gone. Don't care if I step on a crack, because if I step on a crack, I've got to step on every single crack. All of those behaviours are gone. Take me to a psychiatrist and I talk like that, I'd be locked up. But you sit here and you say things and people nod because they know. All of those behaviours are just characteristics of this disease. So I don't have a number of things that are wrong with me. You know, and one thing that's wrong with me is that I am an addict. Food, alcohol, drugs, garage sale, coffee, any single thing that I think I might like, I'm in trouble. You know? So I like my husband, though. That's okay. We probably all do, don't we? There's no nods. But no, and so I'm just really, really grateful, and I'm just grateful for all of that, to have a normal life and to be feeling okay and happy and not depressed and have that sense of doom that I thought was never ever going to leave me. So it's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.